Welcome. I am J. Mary from Physical Science Department. My topic is Pavlov's classical conditioning theory. What is classical conditioning? Classical conditioning is a learning process that occurs through association between an environmental stimulus and a naturally occurring stimulus. It had a major influence on behaviorism, which is based on the assumption that learning occurs through interactions with the environment. Who is Ivan Pavlov? Ivan Pavlov was a Russian psychologist. He lived from 1849 to 1936. Pavlov was the Nobel Prize in Psychology in 1904. He made many discoveries in the psychological field. Now we see about Pavlov's dog experiment. Pavlov conducted this experiment with the dog. When he put food in the mouth of the dog salivates. This response on the part of the dog is natural and unfalling. Food is called as the conditioned stimulus, and the salivation by the dog is called unconditional response. Food is called unconditional stimulus, and salivation is called unconditional response because the response depends upon no special condition and it is unlearned and implies no preconditions. During his experimentation on dogs, he presented food. A few seconds after ringing a bell, at first the dog didn't exhibit any specific response on hearing the ringing bell. Sometimes it may turn round towards the direction of sound, raise its ears, or indulge in barking but not salivate. When it started barking food, it salivated. This showed that the bell sound is a neutral stimulus as it is not capable of eliciting any specific response. This is the first stage of the experiment. When the experiment of pairing the bell sound with the presentation of food for about 15 days continuously, it was noticed that the dog started salivating even on hearing the sound of the bell ahead of seeing the food. Now the bell sound has acquired the capability of eliciting a specific response for it. Now it is said the dog has been conditioned to the ringing bell. This phenomenon of making a natural stimulus to elicit a specific response by continuously sharing it with a natural stimulus is termed as conditioning. Stage 1 before conditioning. Uh, the dog see the food, then salivate. And after the dog hear the ringing of the bell, but no specific response. Stage 2. Here the process of conditioning is acquired. The dog hear the sound of bell, then seeing the food. After salivate. In stage 3, after conditioning, the dog hear the bell sound of the bell. Suddenly salivation occurred. Then what is unconditioned stimulus? A stimulus that automatically produces a response without any prior learning. Unconditioned response, an unlearned response that is automatically elicited by the unconditioned stimulus. The dog's salivation in response to food was the unconditioned response. Conditioned stimulus, a previously neutral stimulus that eventually elicits a conditioned response after being associated with the unconditioned stimulus. Then, principles of classical conditioning: acquisition, extension, spontaneous recovery, spontaneous generalization, stimulus discrimination. First, we see about acquisition, the stage of principles of classical conditioning in which the stimulus under observation starts generating a response similar to the unconditioned response, is called acquisition. This is the initial stage of learning in which responses are established and then strengthened as a result of repeated presentations. Next, extinction, the process of gradual disappearance of the conditioned response or disconnection of the stimulus response. If the conditioned stimulus is presented along a number of times, the magnitude of the conditioned response begins to decrease. Spontaneous recovery, the reappearance of behavior spontaneously but not reduced intensity. The learning suppressed rather than forgotten. As time passes, the suppression may become too strong. No spontaneous recovery. Next, spontaneous generalization. Responding to similar stimuli in a generalized way. Example stimulus like ringing of the bell, appearance of light, sound of the footsteps of the feeder. Stimulus discrimination. This principle relates with the ability of an organism to learn the difference between different stimuli and respond only to the conditioned stimulus. For example, color of the light, intensity of the light. Next, educational implications. Most of our learning is conditioning in the behavior. Learning can be associated with audio visual aids. Learning can be desirable behaviors, good habits, eliminating undesirable habits, attitudes, superstitions, fear, and phobias. Thank you.